Welcome in, everyone, to Fantasy Football Live. I am your host, Jack Neary. We've got Mr. Matthew Scott here today with us. Hello, Matthew. How are you?
I'm good, Jack. How's things?
I'm feeling good. I'm starting the off season. I'm starting to get excited. Right? We've got we've got the holiday coming up. It's where I start doing mock drafts, and we'll get to some of them very soon.
Exciting times ahead for the EDF League and getting people involved. So it's going well early on.
I'm getting pumped. Before we get started, I'm glad you mentioned the Everyday Fan. Best content for fantasy football, NBA, wrestling, NFL, college. Visit the everydayfan.com for the best information in sports on the web.
And the college football is looking very exciting this year. Lots of big names early on. Lots of people are opted in to do a senior year. So I think you need to be watching college football, especially for this draft. There's a lot of big names to come out with a big talent like Jamar Chase talents coming through.
We had a year off, and everybody that worked hard and took their time and muddled through it got better. And that, you're right. That's going to show with the kids, and we're going to get much better seasons going forward. I do want to mention, right, because we got a PPR league that we just started. That's where I'm getting excited. We've got 2 spaces left, only 2. It's a 12-man league, right? This is our free league. We were gonna do it for some scratch, but we'll do another league for that, right? That's what we're doing. We got a 12-man free one, 2 spots left, right? If you feel a little,
and it was only launched yesterday. Lots of people have got involved, lots of interest. So get those last 2 spaces, and it'll be great fun to test yourself against fancy experts.
I think you said a member of the Falcons media was interested.
Yep, I got a Falcons guy in, so it's going to be fun as well. So I'm sure your predictions will make them very happy.
Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I either make people happy or angry. The Y is always there, and I don't know. So 2 spaces left. Our second league will be a buy-in. That'll be for all the gamblers and more fun. And we've got a dynasty league coming up for every fan. We've got an excellent writer as well working on that. Am I right, Mr. Matthew Scott?
We are brilliant. The Dynasty League I'm really looking forward to as well. He's just done rankings across all the positions, so plenty of content there for people to look at before you start your mock drafts.
And that is theeverydayfan.com. Go check it out. Leave all your other content behind. You leave those other guys behind. We're the ones telling you the truth. I'm just saying.
We are the go-to guys.
Go-to guys. All right. So today we are talking early because I don't like everything set in stone, right? I like my concrete a little wet at this time of year, right? Early fantasy football wide receiver rankings 1 through 10. Matthew, I would like you to start us with your 10 through 8.
Okay, I'm going to go with my number 10, Jamar Chase. As we know, opted out of 2020, drafted this year in the NFL draft, and last year, in 2019, under Joe Burrow at LSU, was 84 receptions, 1,784 receiving yards, 21 yards per catch, and 20 touchdowns. They're looking good in camp. He's going off on one. The chemistry is there. The coaches, the teammates can't believe how good he is. It's natural. It's natural.
That's 20 touchdowns in the SEC. That's not Pac-12. This isn't Cupcake. This isn't the American.
This is the reason why he was by far the best wide receiver in the NFL draft this year.
And that year off, I kind of forgot about.
No, he, like I said, in a video with with Rocket Mortgages, went away, he worked on the 40-yard, worked on his speed, worked on planting his feet. As we know from his pro day, just looked out of this world good.
And we'll be expecting some money from Rocket Mortgages now. Thank you, Matthew.
My number 9, I've gone for AJ Brown. Last year was 70 receptions, 1,075 receiving yards, 15 yards per catch, and 11 touchdowns, 4 100-yard games, 13 20-plus plays, 5 40 yards, 11 deep targets, and in the red zone, 13 red zone targets, 11 completions. Go on.
So is there any concern with Julio Jones coming in the building?
No, Ryan Tannehill and AJ Brown are the best red zone combo in the NFL the last 2 seasons.
And to be fair to your point, Julio Jones isn't a red zone guy either.
He's a target, middle of the field, making catches. AJ Brown will just spread the field when he gets separation. You don't want him in a foot. You don't want him in a foot race.
Okay,
which is where you need him to be.
I've seen some videos. He's gone.
And then my number 8 I've got as well is, I've got it on big paper, so there's plenty of stats for people. My number 8 is DK Metcalf. So as we know, Russell Wilson, lots of issues end of the season. Did he want to trade? Offensive line wasn't great. They got Gabe Jackson from the Raiders. They've rebuilt with some rookies in the draft. DK Metcalf last year was 83 receptions, 1,303 receiving yards, just under 16 yards per catch, 10 touchdowns, 8 games with 80 yards plus, 5 of those 100 yards plus, 17 20-yard plus plays. This guy is a big deal. Ty Lockett had a bit of a mixed season last year. Ty Lockett will be back to beating Ty Lockett again, but DK Metcalf for me is a strong number 8.
Do you think Ty Lockett's like back to being that guy?
Yeah, he had a few drops last year, but I think that chemistry's back again. He didn't look like Tyler Lockett in previous seasons. I think Russell Wilson can, rather than do what he did last year, as I had him in fantasy as well, great start, and then he started to peter out towards the end of the season. That won't happen this year.
So just to give us a quick 10 through 8 recap, just the guys.
Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf.
Okay, I like it. So I like that. Listen, we're starting off on fire. I like the fact that you're going after the rookie. Okay, and maybe he's not. And the chemistry with Joe Burrow is obviously evident already. Is he gonna go too high in drafts?
He's going round 4, round 5 at the moment, which is where I would take him.
Okay, you're still happy there. Okay, I'm just making sure. All right, so here's my 10 through 8. I've got Cooper Kupp at 10. Okay, last season, 92 receptions, 4 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's coming off an ACL. So let me explain. Cooper Kupp started the season off slow. Okay. Yeah. And then they kind of, brought him along and he started catching traction. And I don't know whether he got dinged up or not, or they just didn't want to kill the kid.
They wanted to run the ball. They were they became a running team rather than a passing team compared to previous seasons.
And I don't think that they want to kill the kid. Okay. And no. Obviously McVay wanted a little bit more balance, but I believe that Cooper Kupp can get back to, his pre-ACL numbers, which was, plus 7 touchdowns. It was plus 1,100 yards. And McVay, to me, McVay handpicked Stafford to come in there.
He wants a gunslinger.
Yeah, he wants a guy. He dealt with Goff. He drafted Goff, and then he dealt with him.
That's where the big issue is Cam Akers. As we all know, in mock drafts and fantasy hype, there's a lot of people that high on Cam Akers, but Cam Akers didn't have a monster load last year.
Right.
And then the other options are Darrell Henderson. So where does Darrell Henderson go? But I don't think they've got a proven number 1 in camp. So Matt Stafford, I think, will have plenty of opportunity to be a gunslinger again.
Oh my God, Matt Stafford's gonna be a monster. I really think that Matt Stafford's gonna have a great year. So then I've got AJ Brown, and you've got AJ Brown at 9 as well.
Yeah,
we've both got AJ Brown at 9. Good for us. 70 receptions last season, 1,075 yards, and 11 touchdowns. And I think he does that again. I just don't think there's any more room to grow. No. You're bringing in Julio, and who was there last year? Corey Davis was there last year. I'm not worried about that. And I just believe that A.J. Brown is going to give you the exact same production. So don't.
And Adam Humphries is pretty much the guy, was the number 3 guy, but he's now gone.
Yeah, so don't sit there and think to yourself that you're going to get this astronomical number out of A.J. Brown, and Ryan Tannehill is going to just start. They want to run it. They want to be multi-dimensional. Those are things that they want to have done. And at number 8, I've got Mike Evans. And Mike Evans last year, 70 receptions again. 1,006 yards. and 13 touchdowns. And Mike Evans is just, as Matthew and I were talking about before, Mike Evans is just a touchdown monster. He's a red zone beast. He's not going to give you, he's actually the opposite of AJ Brown. AJ Brown is a guy who can catch it in the red zone, but he could take it 70 yards, where Mike Evans is going to give you the 45, the 35, and he's going to catch it and he's going to high point it.
Well, he operates in the opponent's 20-yard line. Him and Gronk were 50-50.
And Tampa Bay is going to live there. Yeah. Tampa Bay is going to live there. And I believe that, if Tom Brady is only competing against himself at this point, which is what a wonderful way to be in life. Just, no one's better. I'm just competing against myself. I mean, he could go out there and for over 50 touchdowns. That's not ludicrous. He throws over. This guy's going out there and trying to throw more touchdowns than his age. That's a fact. And I do think it's going to also attribute to wins. And that's going to attribute to big numbers for Mike Evans. I'd be more than happy with Mike Evans at my number one wide receiver position, especially if I have secured a running back I'm in love with, and then we can shift back and forth.
Evans it's where he falls in mock drafts, because the situations of, would you take Mike Evans before round 4, or would you be looking at round 5, 6, 7 for him?
So here's what I'll tell you exactly what I would do. So let's say, let's say Nick Chubb falls to me at pick 6, right? Pick 6, I take Nick Chubb. Running backs, guys come off the board. Your Ridley, all these other guys come off the board, right? Your Tyreek Hills, your Ezekiel, they all come off the board, right? I would take Nick Chubb, followed by Mike Evans, followed by, maybe I have to take him a little early, but you sold me on him, followed by Jamar Chase. And now my team, I'm walking around and going, and maybe in my 4th round, I take David Montgomery, and I'm dancing. Because I think I've won it. Everybody laughs at me for taking David Montgomery, and I don't care, because I feel good about my draft so far. And then I could start plugging in other guys that I also think are good. Some of these other wide receivers that I think have value. But we'll get to them at another time. Yeah. You owe me 7 through 5.
Okay. Number 7, I've got Cooper Kupp. As you've already said, 92 receptions, 974 receiving yards, just under 11 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns. Very, very bad year in terms of only 4 games of over 80 yards. I think he goes back to 2019 numbers, which was 94 receptions, 1,161 receiving yards, 13 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns.
So you think that ACL hampered him a little, kind of like I do?
Yeah, last year, I think at the moment, Goff's deep balls weren't great. As we all know, I believe he was around about, I believe he was 28 to 30 in deep balls accuracy. In PFF last year. And he's been awful for the last 2-3 years. So that hasn't really helped. The fact that he was also limited to the number of throws as well. He was more of a game manager. Now you've got Matt Stafford that is a better deep ball thrower, going to throw the ball more, better accuracy. It just helps Cooper Kupp to get back to the level he was at.
I think Cooper Kupp is just one of those guys where you could throw it up in double coverage and he's like a pit bull. He's just going to wrangle that ball from somebody.
Yeah,
he just feels that, the one thing that Amari Cooper isn't very good at, maybe Julio Jones also, he's not a jump ball wide receiver. Let's be fair, right? Those 2 Alabama players, although great, aren't the greatest. I mean, Cooper Kupp is finding that ball somewhere and it's his.
Yeah. No. And then number 6, I've got Justin Jefferson. He was slow until week 3. After week 3, we saw just how good Justin Jefferson was. So to finish last year with 88 receptions, 1,400 receiving yards, 16 yards per catch, and 7 touchdowns, 7 games of 100 yards plus, 23 20-plus yard plays, and 4 of 40. As we know, Kirk Cousins is, Delvin Cook is their focal point of the offense.
Yeah, it's the engine.
Kirk Cousins was looking for Justin Jefferson to open the field, and Adam Thielen is the red zone guy. I just think Justin Jefferson is that good. Can we squeeze out another 100 yards? Can we get him to 1.5, 1.6? Maybe. But I just think he is another safe 7 to 6 option, and he's a guy you need to be going for by round 3. And then I'll be done. And then my last guy, have we done? Which is actually, I think I've done my guys. What have I done? No, one guy left, which is Keelan Allen. As we know from previous podcasts, I love Keelan Allen. And high on Keelan Allen, him and Justin Herbert are brilliant together. And I've got him last year, 147 targets, 100 receptions, 992 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 games over 95 yards, and 10 plays of 20 yards plus. He's going to go off next year. Mike Williams is going off next year. Austin Eckler is going to lose some targets. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen have got to be in your fantasy team next year, just like Justin Herbert is.
5?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You got him at 5. That's fine. I just that's the shock to me. That's the bomb for me. I listen, I like Keenan Allen. I think he's a fine wide receiver and a great fellow in the community. But I just think that he's I don't see dynamic, and he's been injury prone over the years.
He has big. When he plays, he has big games.
I just wouldn't. I don't think he'd be my number. If for number 2, maybe if I got him at a value, I won't be taking him that high. That's fine.
Me and Paul. I remember me and Paul. I sold Paul on him. I'm going to sell you on him as well.
I love it. I love it. Quite always the salesman, Mr. Matthew Scott. All right. So I'm going to give you my next 3, right? Because I owe you 3 now. So give us a recap real quick for the audience. Give us your 7, 6, and 5 before I move on.
Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Keelan Allen.
Okay. 7, 6, 5. Okay, here comes my 7. My 7's DeAndre Hopkins, and I know you guys have him higher. I know you have him as 1 or 3 or 2, or I know you have him higher. But here's the fact of the matter is that DeAndre Hopkins has disappointed. Maybe not in his on-the-field play, but as far as fantasy football owners, we keep taking him that high, and he's not producing. Last year he finished 10th. You guys didn't draft him in the 2nd or 3rd round. And don't try to
was injured from week 11.
Huh?
Kyler Murray was injured from week 11. His production dropped because Kyler Murray wasn't 100%.
Okay, that's great. He is an injury-prone quarterback. Excellent. I like that argument for him being even lower, actually. But Kyler Murray is he's a shortstop in baseball, and he's running around. He's got extra gifts, so he's playing football.
And look how his game's evolved, though.
But he's small.
He's small, but he's not relying on his feet. He's got a good arm. That's sure. The difference of him and Lamar Jackson. I know there are people on here that are going to argue Lamar Jackson is brilliant. He's good in fantasy. He's been good in fantasy football, but the Ravens want to make him more of a pocket passer. The Arizona Cardinals have worked with Kyler Murray, and last year he became more of a complete quarterback because he threw the ball more. He wasn't running the ball and suddenly taking big hits. He knew when to throw the ball. He knew when to use his feet. And that's what makes him a phenomenal fantasy choice. But also, he's only going to get better in in real life football.
All I'm arguing is that he can't see over the line compared to Lamar Jackson. That's a fact. I mean, I'll put him behind a line.
Who would you rather? If you're on a defensive coach and they're throwing the ball, I would be more worried Kyler Murray throwing the ball against me than Lamar Jackson.
It's starting to get closer. Because that Kyler Murray needs to get to the outside so he can see. So I got DeAndre. I'm serious.
Or a step ladder. Maybe give him a step ladder.
So yeah, get him a step ladder and we'll be good. Give him like 3-4 inches. Give him Lamar Jackson's height. I'm with you. DeAndre Hopkins at 7. Last year he was 10. The other year he was much further down the list. It was lackluster, and those were both years out of.
And we're not forgetting his catch in the end zone. Him and 6 defenders and still came down with the ball.
No, that was fantastic. That was a great catch. But let's also remember, up until that point in the game, he did nothing.
And that's what he can do. Went like deep ball. That was 50 yards down the field.
It was. Yeah, sure it was. But if he doesn't have that catch, that miracle, he's a bust for you that week again. So 115 receptions, 1,407 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I like my guys to have a little bit more touchdowns if I'm going to move them into the top rankings. I'm a weird guy. Number 6, we're going to agree on, right? We're going to virtual high five here. We both did the work. Justin Jefferson. I'm not going to belabor the audience with the stats that you provided excellently. Justin Jefferson, like I said, I want my guys to have more upside and touchdowns. He does 7 touchdowns, 1,400 yards on less receptions. So he's really Justin Jefferson. If he can get north of 95 catches, you're looking at a monster season here. And I'd be happier. Believe it or not, I'd be happier with Justin Jefferson at my 1 than somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, who has let the audience and you and I down the past couple seasons. He might be on the he's a little not talk. He's he's not a young spry chicken here. He's not. And at 5,
in a clutch
and you
play,
guys,
though, if you've got a game ball and there's a wide receiver in the NFL. I know there's an argument of who is the best wide receiver: Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Oh, in that situation, it's hands down.
But of all wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the NFL.
But I'm talking fantasy. I don't want to talk reality. I want to talk fantasy, right? At number 5, and you guys could flip them, and maybe we'll see how camps go. And I'll tell you why I made this decision. So at 5, I've got DK Metcalf, 83 receptions, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. Okay, we all remember the play. His greatest play last year wasn't him catching a football. How about that? He chased down a quarterback all the way down the field. That moment goes down in NFL history as one of the greatest, that a wide receiver's ever had without the ball in their hands.
And he tried out in a race as well and just showed how quick he was.
Yeah, and you know what? He challenges himself. That's what I like about DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is always challenging himself, even if he knows that he might come up short and he's not as good and he's not going to win. He still wants to see. I like a guy like that. He's always in the gym. He's got I like Kirk Cousins. I don't love Kirk Cousins. Okay. This
is a quick question on the point of DK Metcalf. A lot of people are saying with his speed, because of his build, he's always got a bodybuilder build anyway. If he was to slim down, do you think he would still be as effective?
I don't think he's going to. So it doesn't really affect. It doesn't. It's a hard argument.
You don't think he would look at that race and go, "I've already got a big build. Maybe I could lose 2 or 3% muscle and be quicker."
No, I don't know, because he's a gym rat, and I think it works for him. I don't think he can get any quicker. I think his speed is distance. His speed is not necessarily right. It's distance, and I think that his power also makes him unguardable. That's why I have him where he is. I like Justin Jefferson, but no one. Let's get
DK Metcalf. You don't want him one-on-one. No,
DK Metcalf. If you were to before Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, which we have on the Everyday Fan fantasy page today, right? Because I'm telling you, we are pumping up for this, right? No one looks like DK Metcalf, and I like his quarterback. I like Russell Wilson better than Kirk Cousins. And I don't think, and again, Tyler Lockett is a little long on the tooth. I don't think they have another go-to guy.
And I think Dwayne Eskridge coming in, I think he eats into Tyler Lockett because he is that big potential player.
He could, but I can actually see DK Metcalf's, because he got a little tired late in the season. I think his yards and his conditioning can get better. I think he's been working on it. I think his touchdowns could go to 13. I like DK Metcalf at 5. My recap is Hopkins at 7, Justin Jefferson at 6, and DK Metcalf at 5. And as Matthew Scott said, you can't go wrong with any one of them.
And now we're on to 4-2.
That's right.
Right. My number 4 is Calvin Ridley. So last year, as we know, Julio Jones only played 9 games last year. Russell Gage stepped in, had a good season. So Calvin Ridley got 143 targets. He finished on 90 receptions, 1,374 yards, 15.3 yards per catch, and 9 touchdowns, 800-plus yard games, 7 games with a TD, and 23 20-plus yard games. So for me, that's huge. My only issue is the Falcons couldn't run the ball. So Mike Davis has come in. As we know, Mike Davis was a dual threat for the Panthers last year in his running the ball and his pass catching.
Right.
And Matt Ryan's only thrown for 26 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons each season. So my issue is there. As we know, that Julio Jones in terms of vacated targets in the last 2 seasons, if you go back to his last 2 seasons, Julio Jones had 157 targets in 2019, playing 15 games, and 68 targets in 2020 with 9 games. How many more targets can Calvin Ridley get is my question. So he's going to be the wide receiver 1, but how much goes to Russell Gage and how much goes to Calvin Ridley?
I don't know. For me, I kind of believe that Calvin Ridley gets a 15 catch bump.
Yeah, I'm looking at. He should really be maybe the 170 targets, and he should be. I think he should probably be around the 115 receptions. Yep. But then also at the same point, Hayden Hurst. I think now you've lost Julio Jones, and this is me more of the worry side of. I know he's better than Juju. Juju was good when AB was there. AB went, suddenly he was the main guy. How does that work? Because Calvin Ridley will now be the guy that's marked because you've got no Julio Jones on the field. So I'm hoping that doesn't have the reverse, but Calvin Ridley could be the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football if he gets better. But what's his ceiling is my only question. Is my only worry of how does he react being the guy? At Bama, he wasn't the guy because there was other good guys around him. Now he is the guy. Russell Gage is a good wide receiver 3. Kyle Pitts, we don't know. He's an unproven. We've already put Kyle Pitts in the Hall of Fame, and he's not even caught a pass yet or had a snap on the NFL. Hayden Hurst is good. They're going to go to 2 tight end sets, so I still think he is a safe top 5 pick. Top 4 pick, but I don't want to push him into number 2 yet until I know how the targets fall.
Okay. Who you got at 3?
Number 3, I'm going for Tyreek Hill. As we know, last year, 87 receptions, 1,276 receiving yards, just under 15 yards per reception, and 15 TDs. 5 games with 95 yards plus, 11 games with a TD. So we know he's got massive TD upside. We know he performs in games, but he does have the occasional quiet game. But if you look at that depth, I'm not sold on Mecole Hardman. I'm not sold on Byron Pringle, who's a specialist. I'm not sold on DeMarcus Robinson. He'll have a couple of big games, that's it. And they've got Cornell Powell, which is the rookie they drafted this year. So, in other words, Patrick Mahomes is always going to look his way. And then you've got Travis Kelce, which is the other guy, but we know what Travis Kelce is, the best tight end in the NFL anyway.
And Tyreek Hill can just outrun the field. I don't think we've ever seen, and not just straight line speed. He can run side to side and you can't touch him. He can stop and linebackers keep running. I mean, he's really a unique talent.
He is. And I think he's one of those, he is a phenomenal player, but I think he divides fans because of his bad attitude as a person. That's where people kind of pull in of. That's what for me stops him being a Hall of Fame player. They'll look back at his history and go, is he of good enough character to represent the best players? And I think that's where he's not. But he's exciting to watch.
Yeah, I his antics definitely make you ask some questions that I don't have answers to.
And Frank, he's not as bad as Frank Clark driving around with an Uzi in his car, but well,
maybe he was trying to protect himself. I don't know.
Did you know that's his second gun fan offense in the whole of the off season, which I thought was hilarious.
He likes guns. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Why do you need an Uzi is the big question. What does he protect himself from?
He's protecting himself from helicopters. Who's your number 2, Matthew?
Number 2, this was close to me, and I know we differ. So my number 2 is Stephon Diggs. So as we know, last year he is close to pushing DeAndre Hopkins as the best wide receiver. But last year, 127 receptions, 1,535 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, 700 plus yard games, 7 games of 80 yards plus, and 20 plus yard plays. Last year, Stephon Diggs was phenomenal. No one ranked him as high as he finished. He's only getting better with Josh Allen. This is a guy that's going to go the back end of the first round.
Oh, that's a strong prediction. You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. You know,
outside of the top 6 running backs, him and DeAndre Hopkins are the 2 wide receivers that are most likely to go at the back end of the first round.
I agree on one because I like their quarterback better. I really believe that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs have a special relationship. I listen. I understand that DeAndre Hopkins and Murray and all this other stuff, but do I believe that Murray's playing every game? I don't. I just don't. For me, I just don't think he can, and I think that he knows he needs to get on the outside, and I think that he knows he needs to take some chances because he can't see over the line. Like, was he 5'9", 5'10"?
I think he's 5'8", but
it's even worse though. It's a real problem though, because your linemen are 6'4". You could pick all the angles you want. I mean, Drew Brees, barely 6 foot, not as athletic, but he said, that it was tough at times, and he would actually use the cheat sheet of the TV and the that's why he was so much better and more effective at home. And I'll take Josh Allen over Kyler Murray.
He is just 5'10".
Just 5'10". Like, what did you wear? Really thick heels? I don't know. I don't know. He's a fantastic athlete, and I think he's a very good quarterback. Do I think he plays 13 games? I do. I think you get 13 out of him, and that's fine. But that, for me, I don't want to be asking. I don't know who the backup is.
The argument the reason why I'm so high on DeAndre Hopkins is that AJ Green's there. AJ Green knows what AJ Green is now, and he is going to be a good number 2.
Yeah.
Christian Kirk had a strong season 2019, had a bit of a slow start to 2020, but there's that confidence there as well. So the Cardinals have got 3 wide receivers on the field that can make catches. So DeAndre Hopkins is hard to mark, even if it was just him anyway. So I just think AJ Green opens a few more doors for DeAndre Hopkins to get open.
He might,
because people are trying to stop AJ Green in the middle of the field. So Hopkins is able to find more separation, and he can use his speed, and he can make a big play. And that's the reason why I'm high on him, as I am every year. But I like AJ Green as a strong number 2. I don't like AJ Green as a number 1.
No, he's not number 1 anymore. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a fine season. We differ by a couple spots. I mean, could he end up like all DeAndre Hopkins has to do, by the way, all he has to do is do what he did last year and give us 4 touchdowns, 4 more, 10 touchdowns. Does exactly what you said. Now, does that happen? I don't know, but I want, listen, here's my thing. I don't want to draft him higher than where he's been performing. Where
would you like? I like Kyler Murray. I've seen drafts where Kyler Murray. I'm comfortable taking Kyler Murray at the beginning of the 3rd round.
Some people might take DeAndre
on the basis of his arm and his feet.
Some people might take DeAndre Hopkins in the top 4.
I would take DeAndre Hopkins 2nd round.
And you're giving good advice, but I don't want people to get so high on him that I could take him in the top 5 in the 1st round.
Yeah.
With his numbers, it shows that, but I'm telling you where he ends up. And he didn't end up there last year. So, all right, so here's my top.
The perfect draft strategy is, if you're looking at a running back, if you can get Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, or Lamar Jackson, they're almost as good as a running back anyway. So you don't need to go for a running back in the 3rd round or the 4th round, because you pretty much got a guy that can make up for a weaker guy later in the draft. And that's how I would. That's how I would.
And that's great advice. If your running back core does look weak, don't be afraid to take a Lamar Jackson. because he's going to give it to you with his feet too.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to hear my 4-3-2?
Let's get ready.
4-3-2. 4. I've got Davante Adams. Last year, 115 receptions, 1,314 yards, and 18 touchdowns. And I know all you guys out there are going, but Jack, there's no Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has not shown up to camp. First of all, this is our early rankings. If Aaron Rodgers decides that he wants to play for the Green Bay Packers, which I don't even know what the chances are. They're not very good, in my opinion. Okay? If Aaron Rodgers ends up at camp, then Davante moves up. But I don't want to discredit Jordan Love because I haven't seen him, right? I haven't seen them. And let's be honest here. You know, this is LaFleur. LaFleur draft Love. He picked them. And coaches that drop their own plays, that are offensive minded, you know, the LaFleurs, the Shanahans, the McVays of the world, right? They're arrogant, right? Like Shanahan had a good, and Garoppolo had a good fantasy year with Shanahan, did he not?
He did. And
okay.
And I agree with you on there as well. And I know
when Jordan Love was drafted,
a few of us divided on Davante Adams, and as I was saying, kind of pre-chat, what do you think the likelihood is that he gets another 147 targets?
I think he's going to be pretty close because again, Jordan Love, when the draft, when people did the scouting report on Jordan Love, they said, we're going to use the name, and this is going to sound silly, but he has the arm strength and the ability. And if you watch some of his tape, there are flashes of Patrick Mahomes. Now, if you couple that with a play caller, oh, and by the way, he sat for a year like Mr. Patrick Mahomes did behind Alex Smith. Oh, and there's another connection here because Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers came out in the same draft. Right?
Yeah.
Now, Alex Smith is much more friendly with lending information. But Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur are going to figure this out. And the only guy that helps them do it is the guy who's been catching the ball there, which is Davante Adams. Davante Adams finished number 1 last year in fantasy football with 18 touchdowns. Does that come back? Well, I mean, it's 18 touchdowns. It's got to come back a little bit. But do I think that the targets are very close? I do. I think the overreaction to Jordan Love is insane right now in fantasy football circles. Do I think the yards come back a little bit?
Yes.
Maybe a little bit, maybe 1,300 to 11. And that's why I've got Davante Adams at 4. I don't have that 1.
Yeah. And then the other issue to look at, well, not really an issue, is, as we know, Aaron Jones involved in the passing game. So Aaron Jones last year was 63 targets, 44 receptions, 355 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you're playing it safe for a rookie, a second year, but a rookie starting year,
right? Yeah.
Do you want Aaron Jones more involved? Because he could get 8, maybe 90 targets, maybe 60 receptions, 550, 600 receiving yards. But I just see Aaron Jones having a huge bump in the passing game this year.
When they talked about Patrick Mahomes and Jordan Love, when they were comparing them, I'll take you guys back. When they were comparing them in the pre-draft, it wasn't just that he has the arm. It's that the kid's going to throw the thing down the field.
Yeah.
And he's been, and by the way, the word out of camp is that in Green Bay, that Jordan Love at moments, not all the time, we're still working the kinks out. Remember, relax, guys. We're not even July. It's still camp. Okay. Slow down. Right. Enjoy what we have right now, which is great summer that we're heading towards. But Jordan Love in camp has gotten so hot that the defensive coordinators have started throwing blitzes at him. That's very important because if his confidence starts to get high, I'm telling you, the kid has the arm, and I've seen some of his tape. You go anywhere and check out anybody's tape anymore. You don't have to be a scout to see the ball fly off the guy's hand. And I just believe that Davante Adams knows the routes. He knows LaFleur, and this is LaFleur's baby. He will not let him fail. I've got Davante Adams at number 4. Now, going forward at number 3, I have to agree, and I would be happy to take this guy. I love Stephon Diggs. I did. I actually, last year I had a question. I said, who do you think is going to finish better since they're not teammates anymore? Adam Thielen or Stephon Diggs? and it was mixed. And I kind of put it out there knowing it was going to be Stephon Diggs. Last year, you said 127 receptions, 1,535 yards, 8 touchdowns. I mean, if it stays the same, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've been saying for a little bit of time now that could be the second coming of what Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown was. The Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs show.
Yeah.
And, who knows? Then you take him number 1 because he's going to be a monster. I don't know.
Yeah.
At 2, not the greatest character, but you cannot deny the athletic ability. I've got Tyreek Hill. 87 receptions, 1,276 yards, 15 touchdowns. Gets Patrick Mahomes back. I do believe that Kansas City's going to tailor their game to run it late in the season so that they can deal with their cold.
Yeah.
And they can they build their offensive line a little bit more late in the year for a longer, not a longer because they made it to the Super Bowl, but so they can build that line for a better Super Bowl run. I think Andy Reid knows that.
So the rumors in camp are CH is looking really good, but they are looking to factor him more rather than give him a really strong game and then cut his touches down. Andy Reid wants him to be more focal. They want to establish a running game again because they haven't had a running game for a couple of years now.
Yeah, and we'll be doing running backs 10 through 20 soon. So maybe CEH makes the cut. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Will you give us your number 1?
Yeah, my number 1, where I know we've differed dramatically, but my number 1, as people probably guessed, is DeAndre Hopkins. Last year, 115 receptions, 1,407 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, just over 12 yards per catch, 700-yard plus games, 8 games with an 80% catch rate, 17 plays of over 20 yards and 6 over 40, not to mention the miracle catch. This guy is the real deal. If there's any wide receiver in the league I'd want on our team, especially the Pats, Hopkins became available, I would sell the house for Hopkins. This guy is that good in both.
I won't. Did you hear that? He's willing to sell his house for DeAndre Hopkins. No, listen, DeAndre Hopkins, fantastic talent. I hope he does. That'd be quite the leap, making the leap from 10 to 1 in a year.
I just, like I said, the AJ Green situation, he comes in, AJ Green knows what he is. And he still had a very, very strong season last year. They didn't really, Kirk was very, very quiet through pretty much half of the season, had a strong finish to the season. They've got a guy now that can be the guy when he's called upon. He's not, AJ Green is one of those mid to late picks that you're going to get value out of. But he's still going to give you good points in games. And Andy Isabella is pretty much gone now. Pretty much as Camp said, he's getting pretty much nothing. He's had 2 years of offering nothing, missed the first year for injury. And Christian Kirk is a guy that will get better. But Christian Kirk is learning from DeAndre Hopkins. And that's what, if you go into Dynasty, Christian Kirk is a guy you want to be looking at because he's only get better. But DeAndre Hopkins, I think, makes that big leap. Fully fit Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a more accurate passer. He's throwing the ball now. He's not relying on his feet. All the factors are on him just being the man.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Scott's number 1 is DeAndre Hopkins. Before I give you my number 1, I ask of you, please subscribe to this podcast. That way we can put out more content, right? Every subscription helps, and we're going to be here all season also trying to help you. Subscribe to the podcast. Go check out theeverydayfan.com for the latest and greatest fantasy football and all sports content. My number 1 is Calvin Ridley. Last season, I fought you on this tooth and nail that Calvin Ridley wasn't a number 1, and you kept banging the drum. And every week in, week out, I would sit there and go, man, that Calvin Ridley just keeps putting up more there's his name scrolling around the ticker again. Is that 2 touchdowns and 60 yards by halftime? Calvin Ridley.
He had numerous 30-point weeks for me. Cooper Kupp let me down a couple of weeks, but Calvin Ridley was the guy that never let me down.
Right. So 90 receptions, 1,374 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Julio Jones is vacating 51 receptions. More targets, but still he didn't catch them, right? We've got Kyle Pitts coming in. He'll take some of that away. It's really just my belief in that the Falcons are going to have to throw the ball to win games. Okay, that's just it. Right? I still believe in Matt Ryan. Maybe Julio Jones wanted out to go win games. I don't know what he wanted to do. But I still believe in Matty Ice. I still believe in the kid from Boston College can get it done. And Calvin Ridley is a great route runner. I'll give him the same kudos that I will.
The last 3 seasons, Matt Ryan has averaged 39 pass attempts a game and completed 26.
Yeah,
we knew they couldn't run the ball last year. What do you see that number going up? Do you see him getting close to maybe 45 pass attempts a game and 32, 33 completions? Or do you still see it being trying to get some balance with the running game?
Here's what's funny about Matt Ryan, or maybe frustrating, if you will. When Matt Ryan has a lackluster season, he always follows it up with something better.
Yeah,
he's just been kind of off. Then he does better. Kind of.
It gives you very little. It gives you very little for 4,000 yards.
Well, it's not so much that, but what he does is he just has these seasons where you're like, oh my God, I forgot about that guy. And I think the in and out of the lineup of Julio Jones has hurt him. It's my opinion that Julio Jones kind of asks for the ball more than the press lets on, and Matt Ryan looks his way a lot. I think that with Kyle Pitts being in there, I'll go on a limb. I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but I believe that Kyle Pitts' skill level right now, I think his skill level right now is right where Julio Jones is. He helps Matt Ryan in the middle of the field, and I believe that opens things up for Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley goes 115 receptions. We'll call him 1,500 and we'll say 70 yards. Right? That gives him an extra 200 yards. Right? And we'll move that touchdown mark to 12.
And that
does it. And that's nothing. Yeah. By the way, that's nothing. I think he does that. So I've got Calvin Ridley. I'll give you my 1 through 10, and then Matthew will give you his 1 through 10, and then we'll let you guys fade off into the sunset. My number 1 wide receiver is Calvin Ridley. Number 2 is Tyreek Hill. Number 3 is Stephon Diggs. Number 4 is Devontae Adams. 5 is DK Metcalf. 6, Justin Jefferson. 7, DeAndre Hopkins. 8, Mike Evans. 9, AJ Brown. And 10, Cooper Kupp. Go ahead, Matthew.
Jamar Chase, number 10. AJ Brown, number 9. DK Metcalf, number 8. Number 7, Cooper Kupp. Number 6, Justin Jefferson. Number 5, Keelan Allen. Number 4, Calvin Ridley. Number 3, Tyreek Hill. Number 2, Stephon Diggs. And number 1, DeAndre Hopkins.
All right. I like it. Excellent job, Matthew. It's been a pleasure taking care of
as
these.
Always. What we cover next week? Do you want to do receivers 10 to 20, or do you want to do tight ends 1 to 10?